All right, welcome everyone to yet another episode of the Summit Podcast. I always say I do this every time. We're on a roll here. Sometimes I'll have gaps and don't have inspiration to have guests on, and then other times I run into 3 or 4 people in the same week, and I'd say, "Got to get them on. Got to get them on." And I ran into Kristy Kuhl in our Coach to Coaches alumni program with our Ben Newman cast of high-level entrepreneurs and characters. And because I now throw caution to the wind and ask everybody to be on, even if I think they're way ahead of me on this journey, I asked Kristy and she very graciously said yes. So we have for you today a high performance coach of entrepreneurs and executives. She's a podcaster, she's a blogger. There isn't much she hasn't done. And here's a test for me. Like when I start talking with people before the podcast, I'm like, I need to start recording because this is good. And today I felt that same way. And I said, well, let's get going because I want people to hear this. Guys, I want to introduce you to Kristy Kuhl. Kristy, thanks for coming on the Summit Podcast.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you asking me.
Yeah, well, we chatted for a bit first, and I mentioned that anytime I see someone has a podcast, I scroll down and see, well, I've done 66 episodes. I wonder how many they've done, right? And we want to see. And of course, somebody can have a 5-minute podcast, but I see you're doing the work and you're getting yourself out there. And I listened to one today that caught my attention, and it was about facing the truth. And I had just had a long conversation taking my daughter to the airport down to Logan. And of course, I like to drive because I get 2 hours with her. And we were talking just about that, about like where you're at, what you're doing, and where you're headed. So tell me a little bit more about the inspiration behind that episode.
Yeah, I feel like that's where it all really begins in this world of personal development, the world that you and I are in as coaches, but it's applicable to anybody, whether you're getting formal training or not. Social media is a highlight reel. And I feel like the world, and myself included at times, are comparing ourselves to somebody else. And sometimes we're only showing the good, whether we realize it or not. And if you really want to make the gains in life that I know you and everybody else want to make, we have to get to the truth. And the faster we can get to the truth, it doesn't mean that you have to share that truth with anybody, but you need to know it. And the longer that you prolong getting yourself to the truth, then the longer it's going to take for you to arrive at whatever destination you're trying to arrive at, if ever. So I just really want to encourage people, and I had to go on this journey myself to really be honest with themselves. It's like, where am I right now? Where am I and where do I want to be? And if we can honestly answer those two questions, then the gap is pretty definitive, and we can put a plan together to bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's well said. Great stuff. And I often think about the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And
Yeah.
so we get online and I'm like, damn, this guy, Lee's doing all this and look at what he's doing. And I'm over here grinding and I'm up at 4 a.m. and I'm trying to make it. And then what am I doing wrong? Right. And we're getting that from essentially fantasy land, right? Because you can be whoever you want on social media, right?
Yeah, you really can, and it's quite scary, right? With the filters, and then again, people just there's no accountability. So you can say things, you can pretend to be somebody, and it's like a lot of people are hiding behind the screen. But I think even with the best of intentions, people that are just showing the highlights or feeling like they're further along or feel like they have to showcase that, what's happening is you're tricking yourself. You're tricking yourself because you're putting this image out there. So you're not getting very few behind the scenes with pen and paper and going, okay, I'm not there. I'm here. I'm right here. Comparing your day one or your year one or your episode 66, you're way ahead of me. I think I'm on like 22. But,
3 years.
comparing, wherever you are, you're probably comparing yourself to somebody's, year 10 or year 15. And that's the part that gets really frustrating. So I think that social media is a great place to go fast. And it's also a great place to get inspiration too and go, wow, you know what? I need to step up in my game. That's a great idea. But really keep yourself on a cadence where you're just checking in as to, who was Kristy last year and who is she this year? And for me, like last year, my word was action. And if you've seen the way I moved, I mean, I've lived by that word. And so I can celebrate that. And there's a lot of people ahead of me, but I have to stay focused on that because the minute that I I take my eye off of that ball, it's like a downward spiral. That comparison and then imposter syndrome, creeps
Terrible.
in. And then before you know it, like I've stopped myself before I even started the day.
Yeah. You already got yourself out of the game, right? I mean, started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my fiance Wendy writes a blog, and she gets real fast in it, real fast, and she talks about that stuff, the limiting beliefs, the limited self worth, and that kind of stuff. And the thing that comes to mind for me is she's vulnerable in it, right? Because if you put that stuff out there, they're coming for you, right?
They
And
may.
yeah, the first time she sat on the couch and she typed this blog, and I don't know, I said, hit send, hit send. Put yourself out there and watch what happens. You should have seen the comments that came in. And I said, if you could just help one person by posting this, would you do it? She said, yeah. I said, hit it. And the comments that came in and the direct messages that she got were just unbelievable. So I think there's something to be said for being real and sharing, not just sharing the good stuff, but flipping on a live and saying, hey, this didn't go so well today. Here's why. Here's what happened. I'm going to get up tomorrow and try it again, right?
Yeah, yeah. What most people don't realize is your vulnerability and your authenticity is your superpower. And in a world, and I love to see what's happening right now around the world, because I feel like we're coming back to truth, and we're coming out of this fantasy land and going, okay, where in the world are we? Like I even just saw something last night on social media where the FDA is looking at banning food dyes, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like we're really going after a lot of things. But I think that what I find is that the things that I've hesitated to post were the ones that weren't so pretty, and it was where I got through and reached so many people because they were feeling the same exact thing. It's just that nobody's talking about it, and that's really the mission that I'm on in this coaching space and speaking space and influencer, in quotations. I really don't like that word, but I do feel like if you have a presence and you have an audience, we also have a responsibility. And I have the responsibility to show the truth and to tell the truth, because you and I know that you don't just land to success. And it's like the stock market. It's not like it's like this, it's like we're up, we're down. And if I can show people what it really looks like, then maybe they won't get so discouraged when they're in a dip as well.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a crazy road. It's a bumpy road to the top, so to speak. Um, and you have to be patient, right? It's not like, hey, I decided, take me for instance, hey, I decided I'm going to coach people and help out contractors with life and business. How come I don't have 27,000 followers on Instagram already, right? But I noticed I checked out yours, and you're up in that 11,000 or so number, and that's hard work, right? You have to be out there every day doing it, growing it by a little. I listened to what you said on your podcast about when somebody sent you a bunch of followers and you got rid of those and all that, but 11K is no joke, really. And so what's the, if I guess if I was asking you, hey, how do I increase my Instagram follow?
Yeah. So, I think that first and foremost, you have to make sure that the content that you're putting out there is the real Bob Turner, and that you know exactly who it is that you're looking to attract. I think that that's number one, because to be the person that you're not is to waste the person that you are. And anything that you put out, anything that I put out that isn't authentically us, if we're trying to be somebody else because we see their success, we may not be able to show up as that person every single day. And what happens is we attract people that we don't want to show up for anyway, because they think that we're somebody that we're not. We were trying to be, but we weren't our authentic self. So I think first and foremost, it's making sure that you're connected to yourself and you're putting the content out there. And then it's like everything else, like you have to figure out the system. So posting consistently is incredibly important. Post consistently, leverage anything new that's coming out on a platform. So if reels are new or there's a new whatever feature, if you use the new feature of whatever platform, Instagram, Facebook, whatever they kick out that's new, that's going to be helpful. Obviously, they want to push anything new. So if you're using it, then they're going to push everything, leveraging the songs, leveraging the hashtags, all the things that we know. but you really have to be like, you have to get serious about it, and you have to not miss. But on the other side, I will say that it doesn't take a lot of followers to have influence and to have a business as well. So making sure that you're interacting with the followers that are commenting, making sure that you're giving what you want in return. So we want likes, we want people to comment. So are you spending time every day doing that before you post? If not, you need to make sure you write 5 minutes in to make sure that you're giving exactly what it is that you want in return. But lastly, just don't allow yourself to feel like you have to have a certain number before you can go for it. So I think I had 6,000 followers, and I went to Veronica Beard asking for a sponsorship. Same thing, Burn Boot Camp, same thing, when I started working with Aston Martin here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, it doesn't, I don't have 100. I didn't even have 10,000 at that time, but I was strong in who I am. I was strong in my brand and what I could offer, and that I had real followers, and my followers are looking to me, and I could show proof of that.
Huh. Well, that's cool. I appreciate that. I always like to ask when I see somebody that's got a bunch, and to me, that's a bunch. And that's I know that it's real work. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's talk coaching.
Yeah.
I know you coach. I know you coach high level entrepreneurs. How'd you get into it, and how long have you been doing it?
Yeah. So my background, I spent 15 years leading sales teams in the disruptive medical device space. So things like the Da Vinci robot, 3D mammography, totally revolutionized healthcare. And so I did that it served me very well until it did not. And I always felt like there was just a greater pull, like I wasn't fully in alignment, but I was chasing financial freedom since I had the ability to work. That was a pain point, obviously, from early on. And so I did it in like true Kristy fashion. I took it to every extreme that I could. And I thought that the level of stress that I was feeling just kind of came with that income and with that, the titles and the responsibility. And when I realized that there was a greater pull for me, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. I just had a gut instinct that I was made for something greater. And also I had learned that fulfillment is really where the magic of life happens. If I could spend more time in fulfillment, and I did this exercise at a Tony Robbins event when I laid out all the things that made me feel fulfilled, I realized that I was on a parallel path. So this was my job and my career, and this was fulfillment. And there was no way I'd get more time to step into fulfillment. So that became glaringly obvious to me that I had to leave. But walking away from a job making $500,000 a year was like, holy cow, how am I going to do this? So I left without really a plan. I knew that I had to unwind from that I couldn't figure it out while I still had these platinum handcuffs, because I would just continue to go back. And everybody at the time said, you'd be a great life coach. You'd be a great life coach. You should life coach. And I just couldn't see it. Like, you should always pay attention to the compliments you get over and over again. Communication, delivering a message, being of influence. These are things that people would continue to say. Same thing as life coaching. But at the time, this was 6 years ago. It was when the life coaching thing was just everywhere, and everybody's paying $5,000 and they became a certified life coach. And to be honest, Bob, my identity was attached to this hard thing I've been doing for so long. So then for my identity to be attached to this thing that everybody and their mom was doing without proof was really hard for me. And I didn't realize that I actually did have something of value to offer people in the life coaching space. So I slid into business coaching. So I'm very curious. I love to create relationships. I love to have conversations. And when I left, as I was figuring out my next move, I'd have conversations sitting in the front of the plane with somebody. They'd tell me something about their business. I would offer a suggestion, or, hey, have you thought about this or that? And before you know it, and now I have a job, right? I have a consultant. And so I created it. And then they would tell somebody, and then their friend had an issue. So that's really where the space that I have been living in up until last year. And then I think it was just having the same conversation over and over and over again made me realize, and seeing people go through the journey, it just made me realize how powerful the messaging was that I had, that people had been telling me for 6 years. And so I said, you know what, I still like having those, more higher profile one-on-one clients, but it's time to get the message out to the masses and be able to help more people. And that's what, what you've seen in me the past 6 months, and 2025 is going to be a lot more speaking and a lot more offerings, group coaching offerings, primarily for women.
I love it. So you're one of those 20-year overnight success people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yep, it just happened. It just happened.
I love it. You do some speaking. Talk to me about that. And who do you speak to? What's an ideal group? What's the best room you'd like to walk into?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I think that so all the high performance stuff that you know very well too. I feel like most people really truly don't know what it takes to have success. And so speaking to sales teams, real estate agents, those type of people that are really trying to take it to the next level, but may not have the clarity or more than likely the structure to know exactly what that looks like. So that's always has been and always will be an audience for me. I think you'll see in 2025 me stepping into more stages and audiences of entrepreneurs and people that want to be entrepreneurs or people that just feel like something's not right like me and I feel like there's something greater. What I find, Bob, is that less than 5% of people are actually living in alignment with who they are. So a big piece of my program my 12-week program is putting them in alignment, and in doing so they learn a lot about themselves, and I did too. So it's so crazy all the things that I did in corporate America, because I just was like, well, this is what you do. This is just what you do to have this kind of money or to have this. Well, no, I'm in alignment. Like, I love to get up at 4 a.m. too, just like you. I don't want to do calls at 8 p.m. I am not the same person.
Mhm.
I shouldn't be allowed to drive a car at 8 p.m. Like, really and truly. And so it's like all these little points. It's just crazy that I've been able to design a life of being fully present and aware and listening to people and helping them on their journey and giving them hope. And I think that my story alone can do that and that just inspire them to go, okay, I can do this too. I don't have to live the rest of my life feeling this way. Just because I said yes to this in college or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, you can change your mind at any time. Anytime that you say, you know what, this next season is going to look like this, you can do that. You don't owe anybody an explanation. So giving them the permission and the hope and the inspiration to do that, but then also giving them the pathway, right? So once you make the decision, I have really put everything that I did. It's easy to see the movie in reverse, and I've perfected that and put that into a system for people. So it's really just getting that out there for more people.
That's great stuff. Question that came to mind as you talked about the parallel paths. I had a similar moment where I was like, I'm good at what I do, right? Can make money, got it figured out, love it. At times, don't really love it, but I always felt like I had more to offer. Was there a moment for you when you just said, this, I don't care how, whether it's $500,000 or $1,000,000, this isn't doing it. And if so, what was that moment? And it had to have been hard to walk away from, say, $500,000 a year, right, and go over here not knowing whether it's going to work or not. But what was that moment for you when you said, you know what, I just know there's something more, I have more to give?
Yeah, it was really there was all these little like twinges of my intuition going off, right? Or moments in time that I was around people like corporate America and I didn't agree very well because it was a confliction of my values, and being in sales and appreciation is a core value of mine. I just need people to see the good that I do for them. Respect, integrity, truth, right? All these things. And so every single day I was walking into an environment that conflicted my core values. So, but I didn't realize how important that was. Every time I'd hear that, I'm like, oh, yeah, now I know that that's absolutely everything. And that's a big piece of what we do in my program is figuring out your core values and then operationalizing those into daily tasks. But the real eye opener for me was when Tony Robbins had said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I think I had heard it 3 or 4 times. And this is why I don't care if you never listen to me again, but if you're listening to people, this is why in personal development, you keep showing up, because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I had been in Tony's rooms. He was my entry point into personal development. Probably 4 or 5 times I had heard him say that, but it never landed. And that one day, Bob, it just hit me in the chest like a lightning bolt. And we did that exercise. And when I saw that, this is what I put on my piece of paper, that connecting with people makes me feel fulfilled, that being of service and helping them makes me feel fulfilled, like being fully present, not just like, oh, hey, Bob, like being so tuned in that this is it. that way I can listen with my whole body. And I will know before we get there where it is we're going. And I know how to serve you best. People were in my way. Life was so busy that, like, people at Starbucks or wherever were in my way, and I was more frustrated. I put down animal rescue. I love to, be a voice for the voiceless, animal rescue, veterans, children, etc. And so when I looked at my list and I'm like, there is no freaking way. I mean, I may have like a one day on a weekend, but that's not enough. If this is truly the secret to success, which I believe it is, like my definition of success is to live in that feeling as much as possible. I either have to find a way to make money doing that, or I have to have a job that's not so demanding so my free time can be spent doing that. I never dreamed, Bob, that I'd be doing this and that I could have fulfillment every single day just by being me and doing the things that I love.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, that was
Crazy.
that saying, if you make something that you love, you work, you never work another day in your life, right?
Yeah.
It can also make you hate what you love, right? If it's not done properly, right?
It certainly can. Yeah, I just had this conversation over coffee with somebody today, and she loves pottery and it's her outlet, and everybody keeps telling her she should make a business out of it, and she's like, I don't know if I'm going to love it if it's a business. But I do think that there's a way for all of that, and I think that being in this other chapter of my life, it's just helped me realize that I don't have to say yes to everything. So I think that if I was saying yes to everything and I was taking clients that I didn't want to show up for, now that, like, you really have to just be tuned into who you are. And once you reach a level of belief in yourself and confidence that I do not have to take that. I don't have to do that. I can stay here and I can serve people in my values, and anything that's outside of X, Y, or Z, I don't have to say yes to.
Right.
Like that is the message that I want to get to so many people.
That
Because
was a
we've
lot of
seen
work.
it happen, right? Like we see it happen that you step into that, you could.
And I'm not sure where it's hard to be original in the personal development space, but I've heard it said that, if you learn how to say no, then there are things that you can then say yes to. And every time you say yes, you have to say no to something else. So it's not easy because when I got started in contracting, people would say, hey, do you know how to? And I would say, yeah, I know how to do that. Even if I didn't, I would run and find someone who knew how to do it, hire them, maybe pay them more than I paid myself. And hey, now we do that. Right.
Yep.
And but in the process of that, I was just always saying yes, and I think that's a hard train to turn around as an entrepreneur, particularly in my case when somebody might say, "Hey, I've got this job for you." It might not be ideal, but hey, we've got some time freeing up. I probably should take it. When it turns out maybe it wasn't the ideal customer, client, should have stayed home, maybe sweep the garage, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to I'm sure you probably have. Have you ever had to part company with a client or fire a client? And if so, what was that like?
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't happened very often at all, but I think like what you're talking about, I've felt that in myself too in the beginning. And what I was avoiding was figuring out what my package is and what I really serve. I was avoiding thinking that that was going to be enough. If Kristy Kuhl just had this to offer, like, can I really build a business? Would people really come just for this? And the answer is yes. And you may need to spend some time honing it. But the longer I was putting that off, then the more I was saying yes to things. And it's not that I was molding myself into being that, it's that the capacity was there and I could do all of those things. And sometimes you have to do that, because if you don't have full clarity of what you want, then you're going to have to go through those motions to figure it out. I feel like taking a lot of action, trying on a lot of customers for size allows you to go, right? And you'll start to see trends of like what worked and what didn't work. But the reality of it is, if I cannot the only time I've had to part ways with somebody was when I couldn't make any progress. And somebody has to be ready for coaching. And I am not the coach to hire if you're not ready to make progress. And that doesn't mean that you have to move at a speed of lightning. You move at your own pace. But if you're not even open, Bob, if you're not open to taking this time to actually putting in the work, then I can't help you. And my brain is wired for progression. I think everybody's is. But I'm not going to be the therapist that just sits on the phone and collects a big paycheck from you. It does nothing for me. I feel like so those are the times that I've said goodbye.
Yeah. If someone's listening to this and they're considering, you know, sourcing out, looking for a coach on the fence, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say that that I have a coach and that I will always have a coach or more than one coach. I have mentors. I have people that have permission to look at my life from the outside and give feedback, the things that I may be missing. And you cannot see the picture frame when you're the pitcher. And I've hired coaches for the very thing that people hire me for, right? And you're like, why can't I figure this out in myself? This is what I get paid a lot of money to do for other people, but I can't do it for myself. And so if, just realize that that anybody who's doing anything of magnitude and has success, any golfer, any boxer, any CEO, they have outside guidance because 95% of everything we're doing is based off of our subconscious. And if you don't understand, you just feel frustrated, you feel stuck, you don't see the growth or the momentum, you don't know how to get your way out of there. And so bring somebody in. I don't care who it is. Make sure they have the credentials, make sure they're not just posing, make sure they have testimonials, talk to people that have done their program or worked alongside of them. That's the way to go fast. You and I both know that's a secret. And I budget for this the same as I do housing and groceries and everything else. This is just a piece. Become when you're in proximity of people that are doing it or have done it or that just have that intellect, it's kind of hard to unsee the growth and perspective that you had and you want more of it. So then you just find a way to make more money and add that to your budget every year.
I just said that to my daughter today. I said, money takes care of a lot of things. And
It
we
sure
were,
does.
she's 26, just getting going and dad, this and that, and I said, there's two ways to go about it. You could have fewer expenses, or you could just go make more money, and money will take care of it. And a guy that I heard speak over the last few years said to me, if you have a problem and money can solve it, and you have money, you don't have a problem.
True.
So just good, work hard, make more money. There have been times in my life where I've wanted to learn something, back to the coaching thing, whether it was to learn to play guitar or whether it was to learn to get better at nutrition or learn the triathlon game. I have never hesitated. Coach, coach, coach. Go get a coach. And meanwhile, I'm over here trying to learn business and how to do business and how to be profitable and how to read a P&L and how to do all these things. Never did it occur to me to get a business coach.
Yeah.
And so I want, as in that role, I want to make sure that I'm available to provide that for others. And like you, come from a place of service and don't always worry about the almighty dollar. It'll come, right? Make the effort, that'll follow. So I'm in that make the effort mode and just getting out there and seeing what people need from me. So it's great to talk to you and hear that you kind of have that same moment of, hey, I've got more to offer here.
Yeah. Yeah, I live in a full service building now, and I had a conversation with a death doula who lives in my building, and again, I'm always asking questions, and I said, "How many people have you been alongside at the end?" And she said, "Over 1,000." And I said, "Is there any consistencies?" I have friends most of my friends are a decade older than me. Like, I want to know what's coming next. How do
Yeah,
I?
right.
And I said, "What did you see? What were they thinking? What was going through their mind? Were they happy? Were they?" And she said there was only two that as soon as she walked in the house, you could tell that they lived full out, like they left nothing on the table. And the number one thing that goes through people's mind is regret. And it's like, well, why didn't they do it? And she said, well, fear of what people would think, fear of failure, fear of so just to know and then that is like one of the systems of checks and balances that I have. Like, okay, what are the things that I would be so mad at myself for? Because at that moment, you can't get up, you can't get back out of bed, right? There's absolutely nothing you can do. So, and at the end of the day, what I've realized is most everything that's standing in my way is only me. Like, it's just me. It's just me. And so like these people that I'm worried about or have been where they don't really care at the end of the day, and nobody's coming to make this happen. So either I freaking find a way and get over myself. Easier said than done, right? But you put yourself around the right people and you have a coach, then, you start to get the goggles on and realize like, this is how it's done. This is the only way it can be done.
Yeah, I often will say to myself, I don't want to post that. I wonder what somebody will think. I'm like, Bob, don't flatter yourself. Nobody really cares, right? Just post it, do your thing. And don't I run into someone in the grocery store. Hey, I saw your thing. I got done getting a haircut the other day. Jumped out of the chair and saw a guy sitting there I hadn't seen in years. And he said, "Hey, I really like your videos. And I like the stuff that you post." And I'm like, sometimes that's all you need, right? And it just gets you going. You're like, all right, I'm in the right spot. So
Yeah, no, it's so true. You do need that. And there's been people before that have reached out to me that said, like, you have no idea how your videos, I go to your page when when I'm in this certain place in life, right? When I'm stuck, when I'm down, when I'm whatever. And you know what, Bob? There's no sign of that person on my page. There's never a like,
they're the
there's
quiet ones.
yeah. So sometimes we make this stuff and we're like, hello, is anybody out there? Right? It's like, is
I
it
say to
anybody see
Wendy,
this? Yeah.
I'm going down to do my live. Probably nobody will be on it, but I've got to do it anyway. And sure enough, I'll get some people. I'll say to her, "Hey, remember this when we're a 10-year overnight success that
Yeah.
I kept doing the lives. I kept talking to the laptop and just
To
getting."
myself.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like even in sales, like the dinners we used to have, the fancy dinners or whatever, would invite 30 doctors that have said yes and confirmed, and then the dinner comes and there's like five, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you should get so bent out of shape by that. But you know what? Like the five that came were fed, right? And I don't mean the food, like we fed them, we poured into them, and I feel the same thing about like the social media. We just keep showing up, and whoever's supposed to hear it that day is going to hear it.
Yeah. Well, great. Couple of questions as we wrap up here. And I didn't prep you for this. Normally I do, so I apologize in advance. My thing with my coaching, and I worked on this with Ben, was the edge. And Ben said to me at a dinner at Foxborough a couple of years ago, he says, there's an edge in everything that you say. I can feel your energy. You talk about your triathlon and Ironman training, and you talk about helping people, and you just take people to the edge. So we worked hard to kind of develop that as part of my coaching curriculum, if you will, helping people find their edge. And I've got an event coming up in February called The Edge Live. And so when I get podcast guests on,
Yeah.
I'll ask them what their edge is. And I'll preface this by saying my definition of the edge is where you go when the proverbial shit hits the fan.
Mm.
What you come to the table with that others don't, and how you feel you show up differently than others. So I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm going to ask you, Kristy Kuhl, what's
Yeah.
your edge?
Yeah. Well, I want to know what your edge is.
My edge, very simply, the example that I am for others in one sentence. And that I continue to try to be the example, lead from the front, walk the walk, and just just like water, drip, 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 keep showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that my edge is truth and energy. So, I'm on a mission. I always, I wouldn't say that I wish, but it would have been interesting to see if I had a roadmap to success a little bit earlier, right? Coming from a one stoplight town and then going to college and getting an MBA and landing kind of where I did. And so I'm on a mission to show people what it actually looks like. And in doing that, Bob, that earns tremendous respect. And I think that truth and authenticity it's missing in this world, but it exists here, and I can control that. And so I earn people's trust right away because of the truth that I speak, and I bring an energy. Like, to me, if I don't tip the whole room over, I'm doing something wrong just by walking in and not saying a word. I think that your energy is everything, and I prepare for that, right? Like, I prepare myself to show up that way because at any given time, I could be somebody's moment. I could be, and if I don't show up in the best way possible, then I can't be your moment. I can't be your fire starter. And I interviewed somebody in my recently who said, if you could pull up to like you could be out of gas and be right next to the gas station, but you can't get in the gas station because you're out of gas. So you got to borrow a little bit of gas for somebody. And so he gave me this like nickname of being a fire starter and a momentum starter. And I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. I love that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with that. But there's preparation in having that energy and showing up and being the moment for somebody that just makes them go, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's great. The truth, Kristy Kuhl. Yeah, one of the things that I've tried to be able to do, not tried, I've worked really hard at it and been able to accomplish is saying really hard things to my clients, things they need to hear with compassion. but being truthful without making them feel like a pile of crap, right? Being able to coach them up. And it sounds like you're able to do the same and be people's moment. So, last final question. The floor is yours. I don't know how many people will see this. We hope a whole bunch. What do you want people to know?
I want people to know that they are meant for more. And if you feel like you have not unleashed yet, if you feel like people haven't seen the full you, if you're not allowed to play full out, maybe that's just permission you've given yourself. If you feel like there's something different in this chapter, that you can make anything happen. Whatever you're feeling, like there's nothing worse than feeling the friction of not being in the right place or doing the right thing that you know you should. And you might not have it figured out. Chances are you don't have it figured out, and that's okay. I didn't either. But just know that that if you're feeling that pull in your gut instinct, then there's something else there. And as you and I know, Bob, like wherever you start is probably not where you're going to land, but you just have to step out on the path and know with confidence that you find people like Bob and like me and all the people that we hang around. This is normal. This is normal for us to go, I haven't quite landed, but I'm not there yet. But if you're feeling like where you are is not where you want to be, don't stay there. Don't stay there too long.
Yeah. Love it. If you don't like what's going on, change it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
good for
Yeah.
you.
And you might not know how, but you can find people that can help you get to the next step. You don't have to have the full thing figured out.
Get around the right people, get in the right rooms, guys. And when I started this podcast, it was called Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. And I've worked hard to bring guests like Kristy that are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. This has been the Summit Podcast. Kristy Kuhl has been our guest, KristyKuhl.com. If you want to check her out online, and I'll put all that stuff in the show notes, as they say. Kristy, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it, Bob. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Talk real soon.
You
Thank you.
too.
Bye-bye.